Welcome back to a Slice of Empathy podcast, where we explore the journeys of individuals who have transformed their lives and now help others to do the same. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Raymond Freitas, a modern-day mystic who has found true happiness while living with mental illness. His journey began with the mental break at just 17 years old, an experience that he now understands as a response to his stressful childhood. But instead of letting it define him, he has embarked on a profound healing journey that has ultimately led him to what he describes as a nirvana, an experience where he felt divine reassurance through his father's words, which were everything is going to be okay. Now, as a dedicated coach, Raymond helps others manifest their own miracles through his signature program, Happiness, Health, Wealth, and the Law of Attraction. And with a unique blend of energy healing and guided meditations, he empowers clients to embrace faith, healing, and abundance. I'm so excited to explore his wisdom, his experiences, and all the lessons that he's learned along the way. So let's dive in. Raymond, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks.
Awesome. Well, I'm super excited to get to learn more about you today. So
Sure.
Thanks for joining in. Let's go ahead and start off. If you could tell me about your experience with mental illness, and you also first mentioned your mental break at 17. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Well, I wanted to say I think I suffered from mental illness probably right at the point of my parents' divorce. I started to get this twitch in my eye. And I believe the twitch in my eye was stress related. And between age 5 and age 17, I would go between my mom's house, my dad's house, and both my grandma's house. I was an only child being bounced around. And so, on top of teasing and bullying at school, by the time I was 17 and I stopped playing baseball, I lost my outlet to relieve stress. My grandmother had passed away January of 2006, and I think that was really hard on me. And someone from my high school experience asked me to the junior prom. And I'm like, okay, this is exciting. I get to go to a dance. Maybe she's interested in me. But the whole time, my mental health just declined. I just couldn't stop thinking about her. I couldn't stop thinking about the things. And it was in July 2006 that just, I lost touch of reality, even though I was aware of my surroundings, but it's almost like I went into a euphoric state of mind. Time seemed endless. Nothing seemed to matter. I wasn't making sense when I was speaking. So my mom and my grandmother tipped me to see my pastor, and she goes, "I think you should take him to the mental hospital." So I went into Oakland Kaiser July 4, 2006. And what's funny is, I'm in mind, I'm like, well, you got to be honest. So when these psychiatrists were asking me if I heard voices, I said, yeah, I hear your voice, which I didn't hear their voice. I was out of it. I didn't know what they were asking me. So I got into the mental hospital July 4th to July 11th, got out there out of the week. I tried to make the most of it. I was like a prankster in there. I was like playing jokes on the staff, and I was hanging out with kids. And so for the most part, I was happy, but they didn't know what was going on mentally. So after that, I got into a few tests through Kaiser, and they said what may have happened to you was a mild case of schizophrenia. But over the years, I've been re-diagnosed with bipolar. I don't seem to fit the personality of a schizophrenic. So they really didn't know. They said I didn't really fit this. I didn't really fit that. And so I've been dealing with mental illness ever since.
Yeah, I appreciate that overview. And I know when it comes to schizophrenia and bipolar, like my aunt has had a similar experience. And I want to say she's had several different diagnoses throughout the years. So probably I want to say for at least 30 or 40 years since her first diagnosis, like the name like has changed. First to start off with, I think bipolar with, I think, manic depression and then bipolar.
The mood disorder is what they kind of call it now. The thing is I'm usually not that moody, so it's really hard to actually pinpoint what I have. But I always like to say is I've been through a lot of trauma, and trauma can cause certain things to happen in our lives. Like
Right.
it can cause panic attacks, anxiety, severe depression, clinical depression, bipolar. But we also during birth, we have our emotions are passed down through birth, through parents, sexual changes. So I mean, I've been in and I've gotten into ancestral healing. I've gotten into art-based emotional code therapy. I've done embodiment therapy, and those are all ways I healed my emotions. So that's actually been very beneficial, along with the medication and therapy as well to handle this whatever I have.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I know, like, I have my own personal experience with trauma and having, like, a variety of different diagnoses when I was younger myself, and what I've kinda come to learn today, like, I feel like a lot of it was environmentally based, so I 100% can relate to you there.
Yeah.
So what kind of role would you say that your faith has played in maintaining balance in both your personal and professional life?
Faith, wow. When I think of the word faith, I think you could exchange belief with knowledge. Well, I think when we believe something to be true, we still have a little sense of urgency. Is it really true? Well, if you know something to be true, then you already know it's true. In September 2023, I had completed a spiritual victory. I was at the very end of my biomimetic therapy and energy healing, and I went into the spiritual realm. I went to the heavenly realm, and my dad comes walking in to my to me on the couch. I'm laying here on the couch, and he goes, puts a hand on me, and he goes, "Hey, everything's gonna be okay." But it was not his voice that said it. It was much deeper, much calmer. And at that time, I'm thinking, did God just tell me go through my dad and just say that everything was gonna be okay? Because my dad didn't remember saying it the next morning.
Oh my gosh, that is so powerful. I've had some friends and family have very similar experiences, and it gives me goosebumps because as a spiritual person myself, like I 100% like not relate, but I can totally see that happening, like being a spiritual person and believing in higher powers and whatnot. It's just hearing these stories honestly gives so much hope. And I know my mom has had some similar experiences with my late grandmother and whatnot, like in identifying different ways that she might be communicating, like, from the heavenly realm and
Right.
whatnot.
I have the ability to get into that realm. If I don't take my psychological medication, I will get into that realm. The thing is, you don't want to be in that realm too long because you won't
Right.
get anything done. Time will be endless. And I wish I could be there forever. That was great. It's almost like, but and in October 2023, about a month later, I was on a walk right around the time my grandpa-in-law passed away. My wife's grandfather passed away in October 2023, but I felt guided to go on my little walk up to Lake Chabot, and I saw a hawk. I'm thinking, well, I need to follow the hawk. And I saw two white male beings sitting on a bench. I went and talked to them. One was afraid of dying, so I said, "You shouldn't be afraid of dying. Your soul will move on." But then I told them I would start performing miracles in public, and they were shocked. And I said, "Well," and what I gathered from that was I think they were angels. They didn't have wings, but they were definitely spiritual guides or angels from a different plane. But you see, I was in that realm where I could see these things. And it makes me wonder how many different times in the Old Testament people were in this heavenly realm when they actually visualized these things. Just back then, you didn't have medication to keep you grounded. So you were always in this realm experiencing these things.
Wow. Was there any particular turning point in your healing journey that maybe led you to embrace coaching and personal development?
You know, I think well, when I was 17, I made a prayer in nature that I wanted to help people. So I guess my coaching journey, it started with my education. I first became a tutor at Merritt College after spending a year there. And tutoring is very much like coaching. It's you have to ask questions, figure out where they're at, help them where the math homework is. And then I went to East Bay. Then I kind of took a break from working there. I just wanted to get my degree out. But then I became a substitute teacher, and I was happy with that for the most part. Some days were more stressful than others. I think a lot of my wisdom was gained by taking care of my grandmother and my dad during that time. I couldn't really focus on much else because my dad had open heart surgery at age 62. Then he retired. Then my grandmother's health started to rapidly decline, you know. So I think right after I met my wife, everything changed when I met her for the better. After we got married, I started to get like these heart tremors again, sort of like how I did when I was 17. I would take a rapidly different approach with these tremors. I said a prayer, and I was tired of being the substitute teacher. I had to make a change in my life. So that's when I went to Health Coach Institute to get my health and life coach certification training. Luckily, I did this because I did it in a year where we would all be shut down due to COVID-19.
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to pivot for a little bit because I was playing around looking on your website, looking at your social media channels in terms of relationships and work-life boundaries. If you could touch on how individuals who might be struggling with mental health challenges can better prioritize themselves and relationships, especially if you have a very like demanding job and whatnot.
Oh, yeah. You know, there's a fine, well, the way I see it is don't think you have to do it all at once. Take your time. Life is not a race. You know, we live in such a fast-paced society here in the Bay Area where you have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning. You got to get to work by 7, maybe 8, and you got to come deal with traffic. And then you come home, you're tired, and then whoever was at home, you want to see, you know, when you come home, the goal is to spend time with your family. But if both parents are working now you're both tired and you both have to find dinner and you have to find that little bit of time to spend with each other. So it's very difficult. And as your podcast is Slice of Empathy, I'll empathize with your audience that sometimes the only room to really work on our self-care and mental health is on the weekends. The issue with that is that you're sleeping in way too late on the weekends because you're catching up on sleep. So the whole society we live in doesn't do people with mental health issues justice the way it should. But what I would say for them is in relationship wise, the more you heal, the more you take care of yourself, the more you know, self care and the more you try to understand your partner and what they're coming through, and working on your communication skills as well. So that way, because as someone who's married, I can handle my wife going to work. She can handle me staying home right now because dealing with the loss of my dad who just passed away January 7th. So mental health will come into play a lot, but there's only so much that we can do that's expected of us. And I would just say, don't expect your partner to be perfect all the time. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to say things we don't mean to say. But at the end of the day, if you're able to forgive and you're able to do the things you love when you can have a successful family life with work-life balance. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's so great to know because like sometimes it can feel like stressful and impossible. And I'll give you a scenario. My husband and I just started new positions last fall, like a month apart. We were both in our previous roles for 5 years and then 8 years. And for both of us, it was a actually very sudden transition back into the office for a good few months, like dealing with training and all that, getting acclimated to our roles. And it was a really stressful time because both of us went from either working hybrid or mostly remote schedules to like back at the office, commuting, dealing with traffic, and it was stressful. I mean, since then we're both kind of reverted back to hybrid, but even again, like it's still a lot. My position can be very demanding at times. And so I can highly relate to what you're saying, especially when it comes to like, making up for that lack of sleep on the weekends, because it just feels like our schedules are just so jam packed during the week that there's like so little time for any sort of self care or anything like that. Because I mean, I know we have what's called the 5 to 9, and a lot of times we're, you know, taking care of household logistics, cooking dinner, meal planning, and all these things. And so sometimes it could be really challenging. It could be something as simple as who's cooking dinner tonight,
I
without
always say whoever
right.
comes home first should cook dinner first.
Right. There you go. That's a good word to live by. Yeah.
No,
And
if
it's
you're not,
hard.
So if your husband doesn't know how to cook, you better take him cooking lessons real soon because
Right.
you can't put it all on the woman. And luckily, growing up, I spent a lot of time with women. You know, my grandma Welda and I, Tuesday nights would cook dinner together. We'd bake cookies, cakes. So a lot of my culinary skills came from living with my grandmother. Also, I lived with her for 3.5 years before she moved on to Rossmore. And so I can cook. My wife now knows how to cook because I taught her how to cook during COVID-19 pandemic when she stepped back from work to go to school. But the thing about managing mental health, you got to make money. You just have to. We're in a
Yeah.
capitalist society. No one's going to care about you. So you have to form your own economy, whatever that is. And you got to have purpose. We have to have family time for family. But yeah, America is definitely falling behind when it comes to its mental health resources. That's for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And honestly, I could probably do a whole nother podcast just about that subject.
Right,
Uh,
right.
but in your coaching practice, are there any common themes or struggles that your clients face when trying to balance their ambitions with personal relationships? Maybe not even necessarily with the partner, but maybe with family, friends, and whatnot.
Well, and the small clientele I've have over the years, because I've kept it small, I have a lot of family challenges. Like my dad needed caregiving, my grandmother is in hospice. So I didn't want this business to blow up overnight, and it's a good thing it hasn't. But and the clients that I have had, a lot of it is just trying to find balance between work, career, family life, and business. Like a lot of my clients have a business and a job that they're trying to kind of extend from there to business. So it really just depends on the person, what their goals are. Now, if their goal was to get their spouse back, then I was like, okay, well, what? And that was the last relationship coach client I had. I said, well, what's best case scenario, worst case scenario? Best case scenario, he gets his wife back. Worst case scenario, he doesn't. Well, he got her back, and she gave him the money she owed him, and within 3 months, their marriage was pretty much back intact. Then I went into some more spiritual coaching. I think in my that's a really interesting question because everybody that I've coached has been different and unique in their own circumstances. So I wouldn't say they have. I guess the most impactful part of coaching them was to getting to know them and their journeys and seeing them grow. And about a year ago, well, actually about 6 months ago, I saw online that woman I coached briefly, and she goes that she's achieved happiness. I'm thinking, well, that's good. That's what we all want to achieve, right? And I remember the last session I had with her, I gave her I am affirmations to do. And she said she's just real career oriented. And she said she was really fortunate to have a mentor in her life. And she said the mentor was the glass half empty or half full. So when she put that way I knew that was me. I said, thank you for posting this. And then a couple months ago, I said, congratulations on your happiness. She goes, thank you, Ray. So I think the most common part of all of my clients, they all had something missing in their life and it was causing them to be a little bit unhappy. But after working with me, they're much happier. So that's when I decided to call myself a spiritual happiness coach, be apart from a relationship coaching, because I think the ultimate goal is some sort of spiritual happiness or some form of enlightenment or some form of healing. So that's kind of what I'm doing now.
Amazing. And it sounds like you get a lot of really enjoyment out of it, especially, based on your personal experience. And it's interesting. I had a therapist when I was very, very young, when I think I was probably about 10, 11 years old. And she told me a lot about affirmations, positive affirmations. And back then I'm like, young and immature and like,
Yeah,
whatever, this isn't going to do me any good. Honestly, I want to say not until maybe within the last maybe 5 to 10 years, like I've found so much benefit in the power of manifestation, positive affirmations, positive energy.
it's all the law
Um,
of attraction, isn't it?
Yeah, and mindful meditation really, because like before I'm like, yeah, it's not gonna, this is woo woo or whatever. But no, it makes a huge difference, just like bringing, like grounding yourself really and pushing out like so much of this toxicity and negative energy. Can you explain maybe how manifestation and energy healing contribute to achieving happiness and balance in your life?
Yeah, I'll give it a shot. Energy healing, in my experience, is great, but a lot of some people probably should stay away from it. Actually, they're okay the way they are, but for me, it really got to the root of the issue. I was able to lose some weight. I was able to, like, if something goes on, energy healing can heal it just like that. To whereas our modern day approach is give someone a pill, give them a therapist, and therapy's great. I have a therapist my own self right now for my own challenges, but energy healing was what brought me to having a blissful, peaceful state and able to sustain that long term, along with reading a lot of books and being a part of my local community Toastmasters. That kind of helped me with professional and personal development. Energy healing was good because there was a few times where I just was stressed out. I had an emotion. I reached out to a healer and she healed it and it was gone. It's almost like intangibly the emotion is gone. So I found a lot of benefit through that over the years. Probably will take a break from it for a while just because I think there are other ways to heal, and meditation is a good way of healing. Prayer is a good way of healing and manifestation. But as far as manifestations, I think it just depends on the person. Like some people think you could just speak something into existence, and there's some truth to that. But you got to be on a much higher plane spiritually. Most of us should probably pray or meditate. I think Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza kind of explains how to use meditation to manifest what you desire. And he calls it the quantum mechan, which we would all call the divine or the other world that's out there we can't see. But I've done it all. I prayed for a woman and I found my life. I'm actually a to explain me, I'm kind of between a Buddhist and a Christian scientist, a New Age Christian scientist. She's Hindu. So we both have a very spiritual, diverse climate in our house. But everything I've been able to manifest in my life up until now is because I intended to be that way. I took a break from coaching for about a year last year because my dad's health began to decline very rapidly and I just could not focus on my coaching anymore. And so when he found out I was the man of misunderstandings, he goes, "Okay, I think you're going to be okay, Ray." And he passed away January 7th of this year.
I'm sorry to hear that. That must be very tough, very challenging. And it sounds like, you're handling it very, very well, all things considered. Are there any practical daily habits that you might recommend for maintaining that harmony between work, personal well-being, and relationships, especially like when life gets tough, gets challenging? We go through these challenging times, like, we have a death of a relative or someone very close to us.
Uh, Everybody's different, but what I'm going to say, what works for me, this may not work for others, but works for me is making sure I have good quality sleep. And I will go 100% and really to everyone. Like if your sleeping pattern is disrupted, the next day is going to be even much more harder. So I think just getting adequate sleep is such an important part of managing mental health, managing relations, managing work, making sure you get that 8 hours in every night. And that's what's benefited me this whole time with my mental illness issues and dealing with my marriage and my grandmother who's on hospice, has been on hospice for a while, and then dealing with the grief of my dad and other goals I have that I want to achieve. Like I'm writing a second book right now. The first one's being edited. Like you have goals to achieve. You have things you want to do. I have a house all like I don't know what to do with all this stuff. It's all gonna go the next couple months. So just sleep. Really get in the pattern of sleeping very well. And that'll help relieve stress. And also get rid of the soda and get rid of the juice. Drink mostly water. And I say that because when we drink mostly water, what will happen health wise is your sugar levels will come down, your cholesterol will come down, because water is still the most healthiest thing to drink in this world if you can find a good bottle. Crystal Geyser I would recommend, or just filter your own, but drink mostly water. And if you do drink juice, some sort of smoothie or some sort of green juice, I would stay away from the juices that have too much high fructose or fructose corn syrup. So sleep and drink mostly water, and that's what I would have to say health wise we can all do to be better.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, high fructose corn syrup, probably one of my worst pet peeves. I always try to avoid that anytime I'm looking at labels and I'm trying to buy something, and it seems to be in so many different things. It's frustrating.
It's in almost every juice.
Yeah,
Every juice you got, like cranberry juice has it, or I mean everything has it. I always say if you're gonna drink Coke, drink the Mexican Coke, because at least you're getting the real thing.
right. Yeah, and it's funny. That's actually what had transitioned my husband off the canned Coke to Mexican Coke. He loves that stuff. And he,
Got real cane sugar in it. Why would
yeah,
you spoil that?
yeah, and it's funny. He went back to like trying the cans at one point. He's like, "Oh, this is like so syrupy." He couldn't even drink it anymore afterwards. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
no.
and I think like honestly another thing we really like underestimate is sleep. I know I do for myself. Like if I'm not getting at least 7 hours of sleep, I really just cannot function. And I know that threshold can vary for a lot of people, but seven's like absolute minimum. Like I know people some they can get through the day on 4 or 5. Like that's not me.
That was my dad. He can get on the day 4 or 5, but he had naturally a lot of energy. But then he had heart issues and
Right.
he didn't have the best diet. And but my dad lived 19 and a half years with heart disease, so he was just a very strong man, and I do miss him. But yeah, no, it's been quite a journey. It's been quite a road, and right now I kind of feel, I think most people still have their minds on the last election, and they're talking about this, talking about that. I just want to say, like, it's not worth losing. It's not worth your family. It's not worth losing friendships over. And we all have to kind of like say, okay, we accept it. I can move on. What can I do to better my life? What can I do? What is it that I can do to better my family situation? What is it that is expected of me as a person? So, and I've seen a lot on social media, which is why I've kind of taken a break from growing my brand the last couple months, just because it's been so toxic on social media with different things and different themes that I follow, and I had to take a break from it because it wasn't good for my mental health. Seeing people fight all the time and just seeing people this and that, and it just we're a nation that's under a very serious health and mental health decline.
Yeah, absolutely. And I 100% agree. And I know so many different folks are taking a social media break, and I wish I could as well. I mean, partially part of my job, I want to say, is social media focused, but I try to limit my time, scrolling through Instagram or scrolling through Facebook. I mean, not even just like politically, but we were following influencers and
Yep.
and we're like, oh my gosh, their life is so much better than mine and da da da. And so it can really, really like,
Hey, here's the thing: is their life really better, or they just make it appear better on social media?
yeah, right. It's like a highlight reel.
It's a highlight reel, yeah. And is their life? I mean, I think California just made a stipulation that if you're making money off your children as an influencer, 65% of your earnings have to go into a trust for your child. So you know what these influencers did? They moved out of California.
Wow. Yeah, I heard about that.
My wife brought that attention to me. I said, "What? That's a good thing. You're making money
Right.
with children. You should set your children's future up." But
Exactly.
so they decide, well, we're going to move to a different state, which goes to show me
Wow.
that you probably are you're using your kids to make money. This is
Right.
no. You're running an unethical business here, and yeah,
Yeah.
we'll save that topic for a different.
Right. Yeah. Child exploitation. Yeah, it's
That's
a whole other subject.
a whole other episode.
Right.
So, but yeah, no. I'd say I've maintain a level of contentness over this whole thing. And I do credit myself manifesting a better psychiatrist than what I had, manifesting case manager, which I should have had for the last 17 years, but I just finally got a few last year, and just manifesting help. I was at a point I actually, be honest with you, went through my second awakening mental break in 2023. Almost got back into a mental hospital for the second time, but I was caught in the brink of things. My wife stepped back from work, helped me out, and then so I did have almost my second euphoric state. So I'll be vulnerable with your following here. And it took me a little while to come back, a lot longer than the first time, but I am doing much better, and just ready, just taking one day at a time and seeing where life takes me. And it's like you can really see, when you're aware of this. Every time I go on my walks, I'm getting a hello, I'm getting a hi, how are you, and it's just an amazing feeling to see so many good people still out there.
Oh,
It's
I love that. My mom goes on nature walks probably like 4 times a week, and she's always coming home and telling us, she's like, "Oh, I run into like a lot of the same people, and we're chatting," and she really enjoys it. It's total like it comes in a very close second to like therapy for her, and so
it's ecotherapy.
yeah, exactly.
It
That's a
is.
great word for it.
You go for a hike and you sit down, you meditate, you do yoga, or you just do
Yeah,
deep breathing, because I believe plants have ways of absorbing human emotions. So if you're a plant lady or you're a plant man at the house, plants are actually really good for keeping the mood levels down at your house.
interesting.
And also, it's like when you go for a hike, and after you hike, you feel so refreshed, you feel more balanced because
Yeah.
trees are absorbing your emotions while you hike.
Wow, that's such a great way of looking at it, but it makes total sense.
Yeah. So, my dad and I did a lot of hiking, and towards the end, he couldn't really do much, but I love hiking. I've introduced to my wife. It's probably the exercise I do most. And I think it's such a good way for couples to get away for a while. They go for a hike, they take their kids, their dog. And it really got real popular during COVID-19 because it was one
Yeah,
of the few things that we could do, actually.
right.
Go for neighborhood walks or go for hikes. And, you know, I do worry about one thing with people is my suggestion is you have time and you don't have to do it all at once. And after reading the teachings of Ife, which is African religious and spirituality, he pretty much says, don't be in a hurry and learn what to prioritize. It's most important. So if it's most important, you might have to sacrifice something here to gain something much later.
Yeah, and it's really interesting because like I feel like that's really honestly like life in a nutshell is like we really have to prioritize and make and the things that we're most desiring and wanting, even if that means that we might ultimately sacrifice something else when we prioritize those things in our lives. Like, this is what I really want to do. This is what really makes me happy. And that can really be intimidating for so many folks. And it's like, okay, well, if I want to bring an hour of my day to focus on this thing, then that means something else is going to have to either be like lesser of a priority, or I'm going to need to spend less time on this thing to focus on this thing that I really want to do. And that's can be really intimidating for a lot of folks.
Yeah, that's and to say we should have hobbies and we should have things that we get into and we should have other and just fun things. And I always say, like, for me, I'm like, I always tell people, this is my last incarnation on this planet. I'm not coming back after this. I always tell people, I joke about it, but it's true. Like, this is, but I would say the first three things I would tell people is have fun. Are you having fun? Two, are you doing what makes you happy? And three, find some form of enlightenment in your life. Whatever brings you enlightenment, if it's nature walking, if it's going on a cruise, or if it's vacationing, find some form of enlightenment in your life. So I'll repeat those three things again. It's do what makes you happy. Are you having fun? Because even when we go to work, we can find ways to make work fun. and of course achieve some form of enlightenment in your life. And that's what I think all God expects of us to do. I mean, if so we have 4,500 religions out there, over 40,000 Christian denominations, everybody fighting and doing this and that. But reality is, God just wants us to have fun, be happy, and reach some form of enlightenment.
Absolutely. And I honestly think that so many of us are like we stray so far from that bigger picture
Right.
when, we're really here to enjoy our lives, right? Not just like grind and hustle. And a lot of times we think that's what we need to do, but really we should be enjoying life, right?
Yeah,
Um,
you should.
yeah, exactly.
What's the point of taking things so serious?
Right. Yeah, and it's sometimes it's like we have to remind ourselves. It's like, you know what? Like, it's not like that serious, and so it takes a lot of like reminders. Like sometimes the things that we think are a big deal are really not. Is there any one lesson that you've learned on your journey that maybe you wish more people understood?
Plenty. So I have to think of one. This is going to be tough. Well, one lesson I've learned, I think whatever humbles you the most, do it. If you can heal your human ego, you're getting somewhere. And I never really had a bad ego, but I guess after healing and personal development, I would say been a lot more humble over the last couple of years. And but yeah, if you find things to humble yourself, because it's the human ego that I believe is the most catastrophic thing that this planet can face. It causes wars, it causes relationship breakups, it causes divorce, it causes just theft. Everything is caused by the human ego. But if you can heal yourself and you can humble yourself with things and just be someone of character, the world will be a much better place.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we kind of wind down, can you tell our listeners maybe a little bit about the book you're working on and any place that they can connect with you and learn more about you and what you do?
Well, I was writing a book about a memoir with a message. So I was teaching off of various points of my life in the book, letting people know that divorce doesn't solve any problems. It just creates more problems in the future. But also I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, am I gonna start off my author career with a memoir about myself when no one knows who I am? So I started a second book called God and Mental Health: The Return of the Man of Misunderstandings myself. And so I've been typing that more lately, taking my time. Like I said, I'm not in a hurry, I'm not in a rush. But if you want to get to know me more, you can follow me on Instagram, Real Life Me. You'll see spiritual leader, mystic, happiness, health, love, law of attraction. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Raymond. You'll see a Raymond Mighty Freitas. And you can also follow me on Facebook if you choose to do so. So I'm on all three major platforms: Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. I feel like those three giants are big enough.
Awesome. Well, make sure I get those all included in our show notes below. Oh, yeah, it's been great. So thank you so much for such a wonderful conversation.
Absolutely. And I'll reach back out to you when my book is done.
Perfect. That sounds great. I'd love to have you on again and maybe chat about some of those other topics that we were just kind of hinting about. Always up for those.
Yeah. Take care.
Awesome. You too. Bye.